story tonight. Some going down in November.
Wars, spending.
There has got to be something big a-brewing.
They're using geese to guard prisons in Brazil. Does Biden know what
Immigration
Mexico
policies.
is? Would you scare Joe Biden? What are we laughing at? I
Butthole.
think Billy Mays was real.
I'm a world-class skeptic.
I don't know anything about Hunter Biden. I don't know who's big into cocaine and laptops. Why is that our problem? Complete, absolute incompetence. Like, who funds the news? It's a freaking inside job, man. That the entire world's a stage and everything's fake.
Welcome back to another episode of the Veritas Road. Carson here with Murph. Our top story tonight. T.V.R. Insider News is reporting that the man who paid $4,000 at auction for Taylor Swift's guitar and then immediately smashed it with a hammer is actually the brother of President Joe Biden. When asked for comment by our investigative team, he indicated that the whole incident was really just a case of sibling rivalry, stating, if my brother gets to do that to the entire country, I should at least get to bust up that guitar. And that's shit on the news this week.
Biden's brother's a hero, man. Is Biden's brother, like, somehow related to Trump? It's pretty epic. Does Biden actually have a brother?
I don't know.
Like,
Maybe.
You got to think being an only child is significantly, I mean, statistically not the likelihood, right? It's more likely that you have a brother than you don't. You think?
Yeah.
Or have a sibling, not necessarily a brother.
All right.
Yeah, Taylor Swift sucks. I mean, Kelsey sucks.
Also true.
So screw them all, dude.
I agree.
I like it. It was a good one.
That video was great, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now we got to play it, but we're worried about our connection. So I guess we don't have to play it.
We don't have to play it.
Y'all go look up the video of that dude doing that, because that's real.
Him paying $4,000 for a guitar and then just taking a hammer to it immediately is one of my favorite things.
He's a national treasure, and I commented on that on Twitter. Or I think I said he's a national hero or something.
He is.
Yeah.
All right, so the rest of the shit on the news this week. Let's take a look.
Yeah, what do you got?
So, I have a story from our lovely home state of Tennessee.
Ooh.
This time, authorities are continuing to investigate a container that might be holding dynamite. The story goes on to say that somewhere out towards Knoxville, police are investigating I think it's like a gray box. And the guy who was processing the box, this is what I thought was weird, was going at it with some sort of torch, okay, to open the box. And the box started smoking, and he got scared. Which, to me, seems insane, because you're taking a torch to the box.
Is it a metal box? Has it been welded shut? Like, is it like a container?
I don't know.
Because that makes a huge difference. You wouldn't take
Either way, it's going to start smoking, though. Like, the fact that it's smoking that's going to happen. Either way.
I don't. It was a steel box. I mean, when they weld, it doesn't really smoke, does it? Or just flares
a little
up
bit,
with sparks.
Yeah. It's not all just sparks. Like, and I sincerely doubt the box was pristine steel. You know, I'm sure there were plenty of imperfections and rust and that sort of thing. So there's probably good reason for it to be smoking. It just seemed very odd.
So was this guy like working at like FedEx or something? Like, why was this random box? Or just
he
come on
works
it in
at
the
some
street?
kind of like landfill.
Oh, CMC recycling. Okay.
Yeah. So the box was discarded.
Somebody ditched a box full of dynamite. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah, if it is a box full of dynamite, somebody just threw it out and gave it to the recycling plant.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Or
Which
were
is
they
wild.
trying to bomb the recycling plant?
Somebody had a beef with recycling.
Are they anti-environmentalists?
Maybe
like
they just hate the
myself?
planet. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so.
It could be.
Maybe I did it. Maybe
Are you admitting to basically being the Unabomber?
we're diving into some crazy territory right now. Yeah, no, that's wild.
That's all I got this week. I just have one.
Oh, I think this is the first time you just had one.
I just normally get so excited when
You've
hop
joined
on to
me in my also one. Well, I got a good one tonight. Found this on Drudge, even though I saw it on Drudge. Obviously, it's from NBC, but this is just ridiculous, y'all. Let's wait. Is there a way you can do hyperlinks in Word?
Yeah, notice mine both were hyperlinks.
Sorry, John, for not doing that. Anyway, so now look at this. Look at this. Just go up to the headline. ISIS-K is behind.
Oh,
and
they've
foil
wow.
election day terrorism plot, blah, blah. So
have
first
they
of all,
rebranded again?
that's the story. We've got a new ISIS. It was ISIS for a little bit. It was ISIL. Then they were ISIS. Then they decided to go K because they were getting irrelevant because no one cared because of Hezbollah.
Right.
I mean, this is all like, this is true competition. True capitalism right here is competing terrorist brands. And ISIS has had to rebrand to ISIS-K to stay relevant. Now we're going to go back into Afghanistan to take them down. So does Taliban and Al-Qaeda, do they hate ISIS-K? Are they friends?
That's a great question.
Nasir Ahmad Tahwani. Boy, that's the most Muslim thing I've ever heard in my life.
You pronounced that horribly.
Yeah. Well,
that's
ridiculous.
insane. What does the K stand for?
Kandahar. It's got to be Kandahar.
Maybe it is.
Throw back to our
Kandahar episode.
Yeah.
That's so stupid.
Dude, that's a 9/11, right? To get into numerology for all our crazy listeners. I is 9, S is 1, so you get 10, 10. That's 1, 1, and then the K is an 11. No, that's a bunch of 11s. That's a string of 1s. Never mind. Forget I just said that.
That was a fun rabbit hole.
What is that picture right there? That looks like the KKK.
It's terror, bud. It's got to be terror. Here's what I find odd. I'm sure.
Oh, go up, John.
I'm sure ISIS is not like putting out, like rebranding documents that tell people, "Hey, we're ISIS-K now." There's got to be our bullshit media that's changing their name. Don't you think so?
That's most likely. But there also could be literally a corporation, like founded in Delaware, ISIS Incorporated, doing business as ISIS-K. That would not surprise me either. But yeah, it's got to be the media just riling stuff up. Hey, John, go back to that just real quick. That is that them or is that our guys or is that an AI picture? Doesn't that look AI?
Well, it's allegedly the Taliban.
How the hell would we have gotten that picture?
I don't know. Is David Moore? Did he kneel? Because obviously somebody's kneeling to take that. That's not at eye level. Is he kneeling down? Moheen Kalami. Thanks for that good journalistic work, Moheen.
No, you gotta think they got that from some Middle Eastern media, right?
No, that's AI. Is what that is. Fight me.
It looks kind of AI, honestly.
Absolute nonsense, but
that's way better blocking than you see from a lot of Broadway plays. I mean, good for them.
Yeah, they all look white too, and man, do they have they got our American gear.
I'm pretty sure I saw some of those guys on January 6th.
Probably. The QAnon shaman's probably part of the Taliban now.
Those are the boys.
Yeah, that's the Proud Boys right there. The AI Proud Boys.
That's right. That'd be a great name for a band.
Gavin McGinnis is probably like second from the left.
I don't know who that is.
He's the Canadian leader of the Proud Boys, even though he's Canadian. That always bugged me. Like, nothing against Gavin, Like, he said a lot of cool stuff back in the day, but he's freaking Canadian, so why do the FTC care, Like, he needs to deal with Trudeau and Trudeau's, nonsense.
I didn't realize that the Canadian Prime Minister is just the Prime Minister till they're not.
That's how all Prime Ministers are, allegedly.
They don't have terms or anything.
Yeah, they do that. They do that same stuff in Britain, right?
Yeah. So Trudeau is basically just like a tyrant now.
He sucks, dude. He's one of the worst. Him and Macron.
He's bad.
Macron's a French guy for the. Is Merkel still in Germany, John? Do you know? She's like Hitler's daughter, isn't she? There's that conspiracy theory.
I think she is, but not sure.
I mean, they're all corrupt as hell, and but apparently we're supporting the Taliban to fight ISIS-K. So that's my on the news. Save you a little work there.
But I thought we hated the Taliban. Now we like them.
Yeah, we like them now. At least Biden does.
Well, Biden doesn't know who the Taliban is.
Well, he's working with them, or his admin.
Right. There's no way he is working.
How many people you think are in the Biden admin? Like, how vague is that?
It's got to be a lot, right?
I wonder what the average turnover is per, like, presidents coming in and out. You ever thought about that?
As in, like, the White House, like, the cabinet staff and that sort of thing?
Yeah, but it's got to be, like, the admin's got to be way more than that, because doesn't all of the, like, acronym departments report to the executive branch, which report to the president? So you'd think, like, why doesn't Trump just fire the deep state?
Oh, didn't he try to do that with Comey and them?
Oh, that's true, and
that didn't go so well for him.
Yeah.
It didn't go so well for anybody.
Who was Comey?
And look what's happening to Trump now. The head of the CIA,
He
FBI?
was the director of the FBI
FBI.
in Trump's first 2 years, I think.
Right.
Okay.
So Trump
So-
tried a little bit of that.
So who
but
was
it
that
didn't go
general
right.
that we didn't like? Who was his name?
What do you mean we?
He was a buzzword. That general that he.
Oh, that guy that came out against Trump later on?
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Who cares?
But yeah, Harris and them try to always cite him
Yeah.
as saying Trump's like an incompetent leader. But I mean, who's going to take the word of a guy somebody fired? You know, like
Yeah, that's true, man. You got to question his motive. He's bitter for being fired. That's not
Right.
gonna-
that's Trump's
He's-
argument too.
he's not impartial.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Who are you going to find? Who are you going to find in government that's impartial? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be the freaking courts and the Congress, right?
Right.
But-
Which is crazy.
Yeah. But they're all together.
Gosh. Ugh. The Titanic.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. How can we roll ISIS K into the Titanic? That'd be a tough one. Be a tough connection.
ISIS K has probably caused boats to sink through terror.
Yeah. Okay.
The Titanic sank.
All right. Through terror? Is that what you're saying?
Oh.
Ooh, that's what we're gonna talk
I didn't say
about.
anything.
Oh. We gave away our cards at the very beginning of this podcast. But yeah, the Titanic, you think it's the most famous boat sinking ever? It's got to be.
Right. Unless you count, Pearl Harbor, but that was more than one boat. That was a terrible joke.
That was a joke? I didn't know you were joking. That was really bad. I didn't even know it was a joke. I thought that was just a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bad joke. Lusitania is pretty famous, but way more people know about the
that's true.
Titanic because of the movie. There's multiple movies, but the famous DiCaprio movie, obviously, that got him started.
Which you've never seen, right?
I've never seen, and I meant to watch it before this, but I've just, I'm lazy.
You gonna watch it and hold hands later?
Sure. Well, we can have a
Alright.
view along live stream with our subscribers.
I would honestly enjoy that.
I do need to watch it, but there was also a book about it. I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but it really shaped the public outlook on it. I think it was from the 60s.
My brother and sister, because they're old, went to see Titanic, but it came out and they thought it was a documentary, and I think that's hilarious.
That's crazy. Wasn't your brother a junior in high school when that came out?
I think he was in first year or two of college.
Dang.
Yeah. But the just the fact that they thought it was a documentary
Yeah,
is what it's obviously not. If you've seen a commercial for it, it's it's got Leonardo DiCaprio in it. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the most famous shipwreck ever. Still,
Right.
112 and a half years ago.
Yeah.
Still one of the most famous pop culture. Isn't that crazy? Just that alone, the fact that everybody pretty much knows. The Titanic hitting an iceberg is the same as people knowing the words to Ring Around the Rosie, or row, row, row your boat. Not
Yeah.
that but it's so ingrained in culture.
It is.
When you think Titanic, you think iceberg.
right.
Which is pretty wild, because why do people, if you think about it, why do people care? It was a boat that sank forever ago.
It's true. You're not wrong.
So that right there,
That's never occurred to me before. It does seem to be a disproportionately big deal over over a century later.
yeah, man. Why is that still in pop culture? You could argue the movie, but then why would they make a movie about it? Just because it's a good story? I don't know. It's pretty wild to me. There's so many fishy things about it. We'll get into it, man. But just that fact alone leads me to think that it's some bullcrap. And we're going to talk about why.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess we should get into it. So, I guess I'll try to summarize everything, and then we'll try to pick holes in it. So, the Titanic was, believe it or not, allegedly the second of these 3 gigantic ocean liners that the White Star Line was coming up with. Because back in that day,
Right.
in the early 1900s, into the Gilded Age, there was a big old market for getting immigrants to America, right?
Yeah.
Across the Atlantic. All the Europeans, all the Slavs, all the Irish, a whole bunch of them coming into New York, coming into Ellis Island and all that crap. And that's what the Statue of Liberty represents. So that's kind of
Supposedly.
right. Yeah, in the mainstream. Yeah. We'll do an episode on that. Hint, it's Lucifer. All right, anyway, so you got 3 big ships the White Star Line has planned, and that was this big shipping yard that J.P. Morgan actually invested in. I think he took a majority ownership in like 1903.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I could be wrong on the date, but he was big involved in the White Star Line, not in like managing it,
Right.
managing it, but in like financing it and crap.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know who J.P. Morgan, I'm sure everybody who's listening to this podcast
Who
knows.
doesn't know who J.P. Morgan is?
Yeah, he's like the J.P. Morgan Chase. It's that guy. He's the most famous banker ever. He was a Rockefeller of banking. One of the big wigs. What was I saying? Yeah, so he took over the White Star Line, which is a British
Right.
company builds, and the leadership of this executives of this company conceived of 3 huge boats to like dominate this market, right? So the first one was the Olympic, and they built that thing, and its maiden voyage was in 1911, I believe. And we'll get back to the Olympic later. Second one was the Titanic.
We all know what happened to that.
Right. Or did we? Third one was the Britannic, which came out later. And I looked in the Britannic. Lots of people don't even know there were 3 boats, by the way. Like this is, we'll get into the similarities between this and 9/11, right? You get your 3 buildings in 9/11. You've got your 3 boats in this story. But the Britannic is the one that no one knows about. And it was like a hospital. It served as a floating hospital, and then they decommissioned it in 1917. So it was only on the water for like 3 years, and they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Which back then was even more than it sounds like.
Yeah. Pounds, excuse me. Don't crucify me. I meant pounds. So
I didn't know there was a third boat until today. Like a few hours ago when I was watching some videos on it. I didn't even know its name until just now.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Just kind of like there's a third building called 7 World Trade Center that went down.
It's wild.
Anyway, so the main 2 are the Titanic and the Olympic. Now, the Olympic was the first one. So why didn't it have all the mega fanfare? Because the Titanic had like humongous fanfare. They described it, everybody knows, the unsinkable ship. It was so nice. It had freaking swimming pools, ballrooms.
Right.
Like it was like the Royal Caribbean of its day. But it was like way classier, dude. It's way classier than these giant trash cruise ships. Where it's just like we're just drinking like 15 margaritas. You're just getting blasted, and people are 500 pounds on there.
Right.
It's like a classy cruise ship. The top of the top was supposed to be on this thing. Like they were marketing it to that. All right, let me summarize the Olympic. Olympic was the first one. It came out to relatively little fanfare. The captain of the Olympic was also the captain of the Titanic, which is interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit too. His name was Edward Smith. Now this guy had a terrible track record. Like he was like a showboatman, like a show guy who showed off and stuff. And he like rammed all kinds of ships. How he was still employed by the White Star Line and able to be a captain is the subject of massive debate. It's kind of like, to equate it to something today, like why was the guy who, like the main police chief of the Vegas incident in 2017, why was he the police chief of the Maui stuff in 2023?
Yeah.
It's kind of that same idea. Why was this guy still around?
Right.
Because he had all kinds of incidents. He like rammed a Royal Navy ship, like immediately after the Olympic, after the maiden voyage. It's literally like a month, and then they spent like 3 months repairing it, and it had mega damage, dude. Like it had a huge hole in it, and it like bent the ship to where it would like constantly lean towards the port. So the Olympic got effed up as soon as they let it out. So that's a major issue, because then you can't insure it, right? You can't insure something that's damaged.
Right.
So basically that thing was a total write-off because of this captain's incompetency. It hit 2 different ships, but the big one is what screwed it up, and they had to repair it and stuff. So they repaired it in the same shipyard while they were building the Titanic. They were in the same shipyard for several weeks. I think multiple. I think it was like 3 months. So right there, is it not weird? Like you could just switch the boats out.
Why would you want to do that though?
Well, for insurance, dude. Right? If they rebrand the Titanic as the Olympic, and the Olympic is the Titanic.
The Titanic's already insured.
Right.
And the Olympic would now be in pristine condition.
Right. So the Olympic, you're good with the Olympic.
And once it gets inspected, they'll be like, oh, you've done a great job repairing this. It's in mint condition.
Exactly, dude. Exactly.
Ah.
And then you set up the Titanic to sink, or whatever the heck happened to it out in the North Sea, or whatever, North Atlantic, which we'll get to in a second. But and boom, you've made your money.
Right.
Right, and when the Titanic sank, they got a massive payout after 5 days. I forget how much the payout was, but it was humongous.
I'm sure it was.
So right there, they've solved their problems of this guy's F-up.
Yeah.
Just switch the name out. It's not like the internet was around back then. It's not like there was TV. You know, you probably would take just like 4 or 5 workers, because they didn't have to do that. One of the videos I saw, all they had to do was like change the napkins, change the name on the front of the ship in 4-foot tall letters, and change some of the like embroidery stuff. It was not that big of a deal, because they were built. I should start with it. They were built to be almost identical, the Olympic and the Titanic.
Yeah.
And when you look at pictures of them, it's super hard to tell them apart. Like the Olympic had 16 portholes on the front deck. Or they called it the sea deck. And I am not a nautical guy at all, so I'm effing this up. John, you want to be a sailor, so you might know about some of this. The Olympic had 16 portholes. Titanic had 14. There were just minor differences in them.
Okay.
They actually, like when this captain Edward Smith, when he effed up and hit the Royal Navy ship, like he effed up one of the propellers, and they had to get it back to the Southampton harbor on one engine, and they actually took a propeller off the Titanic and put it on the Olympic to repair it. Right, that'll be important later in 1985. We'll probably get to that at the end. So we're setting the context, right? The Olympic gets effed up. It's the first big one. So the guys on the White Star Line are like, man, what are we going to do? We're going to go bankrupt. So it already makes sense. Just freaking switch the ships. And then
What's the logical play there? I've worked for insurance. I get how it works. Yeah.
So we got a massive insurance fraud situation. The Titanic.
Allegedly.
Dude, it's it's got to be. At the very least, it's insurance fraud. We'll get at the worst as to what it could be at the end. Because this is like a multi-layered conspiracy, dude. It's like JFK. It's like Russian nesting dolls of conspiracy. You've got a conspiracy within a conspiracy within a conspiracy. So the Titanic goes out in like April. It was going from freaking, England to New York. They're running through. So all right. So there's this other boat called the Californian, right? So there's a coal strike in England going on, and all this. So people were desperate for work, dude. Desperate, all like the working class people.
Yeah.
And there wasn't no like Social Security and freaking unemployment back then. It was just if you don't work, you're screwed, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So they were desperate for work, but and it was hard to get coal to fuel up these ships, because that's how they worked, with like boilers and steam, and like it ain't like now where you can just fill like with 10 million pounds of diesel.
Right.
They run off coal. So 2 different things. The Californian somehow got full of coal, and they were going across the Atlantic with no passengers. It was just the crew, and their cargo was like 3,000 woolen blankets and sweaters. That was their cargo. An empty ship going across the Atlantic in the middle of a coal strike, when people were like desperately trying to get to America.
Yeah.
So that's weird, right?
A little bit.
That's one weird situation. The Titanic, so many people did not want to work on it. Like hundreds and hundreds of people like refused to work on it. It was difficult to even get passengers. It was only like half full. Lots of people canceled at the last minute, most notably J.P. Morgan, who was supposed to be on it. Like, he had a bunch of valuable pottery he was shipping to New York that he took off at the last second. He was supposed to be on it himself. He claimed he was sick. Then somebody saw him in France like 3 days later, perfectly fine. Also, the wife of the president of the White Star Lines, like Bruce Ismay was his name, his wife, can't remember her name. She was supposed to be on it, but she also was like, hey, I'm sick. And then somebody saw her at like a ski resort, like some reporter. So that's fishy. To parallel it to 9/11. How many people were supposed to be in 9/11 in the towers that were in like leadership that just didn't,
Right.
Same kind of thing.
Jeez.
But so it's hard to find work, which is weird because you're in the middle of a coal strike. Right? It was hard to get people to want to get on it, both working class and upper class.
Which I find odd, because you would think that, assuming, let's say it is a conspiracy, how would the working class have known?
They would know because
they worked.
Yeah, because they worked on the Olympic, And if they get on there, they're like, oh, this is the same ship. This ship's been freaking screwed. It's still screwed. Like, if they're getting on there and inspecting it and crap and walking around, they realize that, hey, this isn't the Titanic. This is the ship that this captain effed up, and I'm not going across the Atlantic Ocean on this ship.
Okay.
There was a lot of that. Like, even one of the officers, like, they found one of his letters to his wife, and he was allegedly, like, man, I should have wrote this guy's name down. I apologize to the audience for that, but this guy was like, I still don't like this ship, to my wife, even though it was the first time he had ever been on it. But he was an Olympic crew member and one of the, like, White Star Line's upper officers.
Yeah.
So there's lots of incidences like that, and they have, like, documented letters of this crap. So that's weird, right?
Yeah, to say the least.
John, officer doesn't have a V in it. So, just saying.
Off of her.
Yeah. But what's also crazy is the people that did get on it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a little while.
I want to talk about that.
Some of the most richest people and famous people in the world got on that boat. John Jacob Astor, like, everybody's heard of, like, Astor Waldorf and that fancy hotel in New York. The dude was, like, mega rich, mega famous. Benjamin Guggenheim, he was mega famous. Everybody's heard of the Guggenheim Museum, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, in that family. Right? And all these guys are Gilded Age monopoly giants, right? So they're basically like the Rockefellers and the Morgans of their industry.
Yeah.
And I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head what they were in, but I think Astor is real estate. Doesn't matter.
That would make sense given the hotel.
These people were mega opposed to a political deal that was being proposed and, like, mulled over in America, right? The Federal Reserve Bank. Because and not because they were some kind of heroes that wanted to save the common man, just because, like, if some centralized entity took control of printing the money, like, their fortunes would be screwed. Through devaluation. So it's purely self-serving, but they were massively opposed to it and vocally opposed to it. Which is big problems for J.P. Morgan, because he's probably the main architect behind the Federal Reserve. So, dude, you kill two birds with one stone. You protect your investment in White Star Lines by scrapping the Olympic because of this captain's idiocy.
Yeah.
Right? You get the insurance money to boot. Right? You deal with the problem of the captain.
Yeah.
You get the insurance money. And you kill off all the people that are opposed to your economic domination in the Federal Reserve.
It's pretty tidy.
Mega proposing, like, how nice, how luxurious this ship is, all the people who were there of the day.
Yeah.
Dude, like, how much of a master plan is that?
It's a very tidy. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Like, so let's get back to the Californian, this random ship that goes in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
With a bunch of blankets and covers and stuff. Right? The Titanic sets off on its voyage, and
it's a much fanfare, unlike the Olympic.
Right, which we already discussed is weird as heck.
Sorry.
No, you're good, brother. So they get in the middle of the North Atlantic in April, which is still freezing cold. All right, I think they said the water temperature was like right at freezing, and it was like 28-degree air temperature, which will be important later in the inquiry. So this boat is there was a British and an American inquiry, and in those inquiries, like, they interviewed tons and tons of sailors, like, asking what's the normal procedure in going through ice fields.
Well, we skipped over the whole topic of it sinking. Is there nothing fishy about that?
No, we're going to get to that. That's why I'm saying this.
I felt like we skipped ahead. Okay, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm saying how I'm going to lay context for why I'm going to say this statement. I'm just pulling this out of my butt.
Yeah.
So they say it's normal procedure for ships to just keep moving through ice fields because you've got lookouts who can see them 2 to 3 miles ahead if an iceberg's coming, and somebody's always on watch. Like, multiple people are always on watch.
And the boat can stop in time.
Right, or doesn't even have to stop, just
veer to the side.
Turn the effing thing. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not unusual to keep driving through ice, contrary to what you may think.
Okay.
Like, maybe our natural inclination, if there's a bunch of freaking icebergs, well, I mean, freaking stop the boat and figure out what to do, right?
Yeah. That's what I would think. Yeah.
But that wasn't the way to do it back then, and a bunch of sailors testify that. So two unusual things about that. The Californian was just freaking stopped. Why was it stopped?
Where was it stopped?
In the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
And the placing away from the Titanic is very important. It was like 12 miles away from the Titanic.
So hella close.
Yeah, but not close
for that
enough.
type of a voyage.
Right, but not close enough to see anything from it, which is
Right.
very important. So Titanic is going through, and like on the night it sunk, so many weird stuff. The captain elected, who was like 6 foot tall, to sleep on a couch that was like 5'5", fully dressed, instead of go to his cabin.
Oh, it sounds like he was a drunkard anyway. So what are the odds he just passed out there?
I mean, he could be, or he could know that, like, he's supposed to hit it. If they're driving through an ice field, if they just completely ignore all the ice, it's likely that they'll hit one. Kind of like Han Solo flying through all the asteroids, you know. If Han just goes back there and starts, playing with Chewie and on their weird chess set and drinking margaritas, they're gonna effing hit an asteroid if they're flying through the asteroid field. Okay.
Logical.
So it's kind of like that. So he's sleeping on a couch. Like a bunch of other officers did the same thing. I think the chief engineer did. So my point is, like, they didn't necessarily steer into an iceberg, but by not giving an F and like completely neglecting stuff, they're going to hit an iceberg.
Right.
Right. Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
The captain was 100% in on it, but he was duped. He was double crossed because he thought, like, I'm not sure, but the speculation that, like, the top guys at White Star Line pitched this idea to him: hey, you sink the ship, but we're going to have this ship out here, the Californian, that's going to rescue you.
That
Makes
tracks.
sense, right?
Especially being 12 miles away.
Right.
In the middle of the Atlantic.
Yeah, so, but the problem is, like, once they hit the iceberg, like, it took like 45 minutes for the crew to do anything, which is weird.
That's a long time.
Yeah, because like the passengers, they weren't really going to notice anything that is going to happen. Like, all it would have really done is, like, freaking screwed over everybody in the lower deck and, like, killed them and stuff.
Oh, just that.
But no, it's just a freaking huge ship, dude. So you're not going to, like, really notice it because it's the
Right.
middle of the night.
Yeah.
You might have felt the vibration and be like, oh, hey, what was that?
Yeah.
But you're not going to think, oh, impending doom, we're dying from the moment it happened.
Right.
It would just be like a weird noise, a weird vibration.
Yeah, and wasn't like where it struck, like it wasn't passenger area where they actually struck the iceberg.
Well, yeah, no, the crew's in the lower decks, dude. The
Yeah.
passengers are way up above the water. This thing was like 175.
Yeah.
This boat was humongous, dude.
So that's why
Like,
the passengers probably wouldn't have noticed much of anything.
right, they're way above the water, and icebergs, there's a reason everybody says just the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah.
It's going to strike really low on the ship, probably, maybe even only 20 feet of it. I'm just guessing, would have been above the water, so who's going to even freaking see that in the middle of the night while you're asleep?
Right.
So none of the passengers are panicking, but like, the captain took forever to order anybody to do anything. Like, and even once they finally realized what was happening, they were only like making the lifeboats like half full. Right? That's the famous thing. So why would you do that? Well, you would do that if you knew that a boat was coming to get you.
Yeah.
And
True.
you knew it was in the vicinity. The captain was like constantly asking all the people on deck, the people on lookout, like, hey, do you see any sparks? And if you see any sparks, what color are they?
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Why would you, like, they don't have radar back then. I'm sure they had some kind of radio. In fact, like, the Californian had, like, sent messages, or, like, it was, like, telegram or something. They were sending messages to the Titanic, and 3 of them were personally addressed to the captain. I don't think they ever figured out what they said, but they had confirmed that the Californian was talking to the Titanic, so they knew they were there.
Wow.
But why I keep saying, like, the 12 miles is this is where they effed up. Like, the captain thought it was way closer, and he was expecting to see them, like, shooting flares up. They were supposed to be red, white, and blue, the color of the flares.
Ah.
But all the people were telling the captain that they were just seeing white flares. It was just white, which didn't add up because he was supposed to see red, white, and blues. Turns out there was another boat that was, like, illegally fishing for seals on the ice.
All
Just
right.
happened to be. Like, this is how crazy the story is.
Okay.
Called Samson. All right. Yeah. All these have like biblical, like biblical and pagan names. Like, it's the whole thing. Like, this is where the conspiracy and the conspiracy and the conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
This is how it relates to 9/11 because everything has like.
This is wild. I
Dude,
didn't know any of this.
yeah.
This is insane.
So there's another boat that's fishing for seals, and it's like mega illegal
Right.
in the middle of the effing night, called the Samson, and the captain later admitted this, like years later, but he didn't come forward for a while because what he was doing was illegal.
Makes sense.
but
Insurance fraud's not looked
right.
upon well.
No, I'm talking about the captain of the Samson.
Oh, okay.
He was shooting up white flares to call his fishing boats back into his main boat. And he just happened to be right by the Titanic. And the Californian, if they were shooting up their
Right.
sparks 12 miles away, they couldn't see him. It's too far.
Yeah.
So the captain thought that he was being rescued because he was seeing sparks, but he was probably a little bit confused because why were they not red, white, and blue and just white?
Right.
And that just happens to be some random illegal guy fishing for seals.
All of these 3 boats just happen to be within
In the
that
middle of
near-
nowhere,
yeah.
in the North Atlantic Ocean.
Just a coincidence.
Yeah, just a coincidence.
Crazy.
That's how ridiculous it is. So by the time he realizes he's not nobody's
Ain't nobody
coming.
coming for him.
They fill up the lifeboats, but they've already let too many go half full, so 1,500 people die and they're screwed.
Jeez. And I assume several of those were these titans of industry we were discussing.
Yep. What a coincidence.
Good heavens.
And then like the whole freaking inquiry is just like the 9/11 inquiry. The British and the American, the cover-ups from start to finish. Like the head of the British inquiry, he was like his name was like Lord Mercy, and he was a lawyer and a judge. He also headed up the like Lusitania sinking inquiry.
Just happened to.
Yeah, so I mean, how can he be non-biased third party if he's mega involved? It's just a load of just ridiculousness, dude. Like a coincidence after coincidence, occult names after occult names.
Yeah.
Motive for people who weren't there to profit humongously. Like, and I think there are only 3 people that allegedly ever saw the iceberg. Because, like, tons of people say they never even saw it. They just, like, felt something, and then the ship was sinking.
You think maybe there was no iceberg? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. It could have been. I mean, it made sense that it could have been. That part, where it differs from 9/11 is it could have been I mean, I don't think there were any planes in 9/11, but there very well could have been an iceberg. Because if they were going through an ice field, like that was, like, confirmed. So, but they also, strangely enough, like 5 days before they set off, like there was apparently a fire in like one of the boiler rooms that they couldn't put out, and it's just been like smoldering for 5 days, but they decided to take off anyway. So
Why would you not at that point? Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, so I mean that's kind of like the power outage that went in.
All the maintenance that was
Yeah,
going
in
on
like
in
July.
Yeah.
Like the parallels between this and 9/11 are massive.
That is very strange.
Yeah, yeah, John's pulling it up right there.
What?
Yeah, I mean, dude, the coal bunker was 3 stories. That is huge.
You gotta have a lot of coal to fill, to move a
Do
ship.
you know how
that big.
huge that is?
That's massive.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's at 3 weeks right there. I'd seen like a few days on what I've read, but
That's
yeah.
crazy.
So I don't know, just a crapshoot. None of it makes any sense. Like just why was this captain the captain in the first place? Probably because he had already effed up this boat because this, what we call the Titanic, was actually the Olympic. And then, so he was familiar with it, so just let him go down with the ship and then double cross him. Right.
I mean, you might as well at that point. Did he survive?
No, he died. That's like the famous thing in like Titanic, right? He goes down with the ship.
Right.
I think the highest ranking officer that survived was like second officer or something, and he gave a bunch. He was like mega defensive in the testimony and in the inquiry, and then they shipped another high ranking guy off to be a harbor master in South Africa, Like, they were getting rid of all the high important people.
Yeah.
Just a joke. So then it sinks, obviously, and they didn't find it till 1985.
Yeah. What the hell took so long?
Well, I mean, in their defense, like, it was how freaking deep is that part of the ocean? Like 12,000 feet deep.
You've got a whole ocean to look through. I
Right?
don't know how you're gonna
And
find
even
that.
if the Titanic is huge, looking for like something that's, I don't know, like half a mile. How long was it? It wasn't half a mile. So look at
that would be so big.
yeah, that'd be like freaking like 15 aircraft carriers together. But
Yeah.
it's like it's way smaller than a needle in the haystack.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It is. No,
In a super deep haystack. So
yeah.
they finally found it in 1985, and what was so wild, dude, is, and you can see pictures of this. So they send their submarines down there, and all the black paint on the hull had like corroded and faded off,
Mm-hmm.
but there was gray paint underneath that they like taken pictures of and stuff. And the Titanic had never been painted gray, but the Olympic had.
Oh.
Yeah. They see one of their propellers, and it's got like the number like 04 on it, which was like they like matched the serial number, or like part of the serial number they could see, which was an original propeller from the Titanic. But what's the problem with that? They took that thing off and put it on the Olympic,
Yeah.
which is documented.
Well, unless it was the other propeller.
Yeah, I guess. It could be.
Yeah.
But still, it's
That
weird,
one's
right?
not exactly ironclad.
But there was also like the faded letter. You can see, like, you know how like when you take like a raised lettering off something, you can kind of see like a crappy imprint of a letter,
Yeah.
like flaked off.
Right.
They found an M and a P that they could still read, like on the side.
Okay.
They switched those ships, dude. The Titanic sailed until 1935. The Titanic never sunk.
The Olympic sank.
The Olympic sank. What a fantastic repair job they did on the Olympic for it to be like freaking brand new and last another 20-something years.
So that begs the question. If we assume all that's true, which is a big assumption, but it all makes pretty good sense. Why?
Oh, the why's easy. Level 1, money, insurance fraud. Same thing. Silverstein takes out, his $1 billion insurance money, like 2 months before 9/11.
Right.
Make a lot of money, dude. These people, all they care about is money, right? J.P. Morgan's the master of money. So he's like, instead of this captain, here, I saved you some work there. Instead of him ruining my investment in this company, which is like, he's cutthroat, dude. He's not going to stand for that. Right? He will absolutely have people murdered to protect his investment and money. Like, John Pierpont Morgan is no saint. So don't think of him as some kind of, like, entrepreneurial hero that he's portrayed as in the textbooks.
I'm sure that's how they paint him at,
Oh, yeah.
all the banks.
Right, dude. Level 1's money. You make a ton of money. Get rid of a problem.
Yeah.
That's an easy why. And that's not even like, how would you even debate that? The F-ups of the Olympics, 100% documented.
I get that's
huge
a lot
problem for the White Star Line. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like millions and millions of dollars, like 180 million pounds in today's money.
Right. I get that that's a lot of money and people have murdered for less. That still seems like an awful lot of work for that. I would think there would have to be some bigger ulterior motive.
But would it be that much work? Like I said, all they had to do was like switch out the lettering.
Yeah, so to interrupt real quick on that, if you take a look at the screen, this is supposedly, I think, an image of the wreck. I mean...
That's a PDF, John.
Oh, no. What I have here.
Okay.
This is what, just from one source I can find online, is supposedly the
M and the P, yeah.
and the P.
I see it there.
You can kind of see in there.
Yeah, I think I saw that picture too. They said the letters were 4 foot tall.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm just now wow.
Yeah.
That the way that image is really screwed with my depth perception. And so I thought, Wow, you can. I mean, that's for sure an anemone.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I can't speak to 100% of the validity
That image
of
could
the
for sure
image
be fake, but if it's real,
This is
then
from this.
Yeah, that's like the grayish paint crap.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's real, then there's not a whole lot of questioning it. If it's real, and that's always it's getting so hard to tell if things are real these days.
Yeah, dude. How can you even I would want to honestly, I would want to. So Robert Ballard discovers the Titanic in 1985, and that was like some really, really big news in that day. I
Yeah.
would want to get a hold of every newspaper I could from 1985, any magazine.
John, change that scene.
Any magazine article that talked about it and published whatever pictures they found from 1991.
Yeah.
I'd want to get a hold of anything pre-internet that I could.
Right.
But I mean that's freaking even that is be freaking hard because where are all the archives for that kind of crap in government institutions?
Yeah.
Like I don't trust the Library of Congress to hold anything. That's why. Honestly, it's kind of the same thing for when all these mega events happen. The stuff that comes out immediately is the stuff you want to hang on to because everything will get memory hold and changed later.
Well, there's that. You know what? That's true. Everything does seem to get screwed with, or just completely censored later on. I've also wondered about all these. Have you noticed? And I don't know how applicable this is to the Titanic, but it's been on my mind. Have you noticed any pick a big event, right? The death of a celebrity, Diddy stuff that's just going on. They come out with documentaries the next day on a lot of streaming platforms.
Yeah, I have seen that kind of stuff.
What the hell? There's no way you could have that ready that fast.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but to relate that to the Titanic, there was a book in 1898 called "The Wreck of the Titan" that depicts this giant ocean liner called the Titan hitting an iceberg and sinking.
In 1898?
In 1898.
I mean, that's, 14 years before the Titanic sunk?
Yeah.
Who would have known? Unless it was some kind of prophet, Nostradamus type.
Well, that's where we get into, you ask the why, and then you get into different layers and layers of conspiracy.
Yeah.
Number one's money, right? Level one's money. Level two, you could call it world domination. Set up the Federal Reserve to completely take over.
Still money, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's power.
Yeah.
Right. Level one's money, sure you get however much the payout was, $180 million. That's a lot of money, but
that's an outrageous sum of money in those days.
No, I was equating it to modern day money.
Oh, okay.
But that's not. You're not going to take over America with that,
right?
Right. You get level two is the power, the setting up the system to do so, right? To slowly whittle away and steal everything from the people, which they had at that time, which they've successfully done now, because we're essentially all slaves. I don't. You've heard me rant about the current economic banking system and inflation and all that.
Right.
But they had to set that up. Kill the people that are opposed to setting that up. That's
level
the
powerful
2.
ones, yeah.
Right? That's level 2. Level 3 would be the wreck of the Titan. And that gets to stuff we don't even understand, dude. How is that possible? Is this entire reality a script? And they have to tell you what's coming beforehand. Right?
That was the next thing I was going to ask you.
That gets into supernatural. That goes beyond people.
Why do stories like this keep cropping up? I mean,
Yeah.
that is so similar to 9/11. Eerily similar.
That gets into the mega level of the supernatural planning and things that last multiple lifetimes, and the meta questions of what is this world and why are we here, dude? It's literally
the fabric, the nature of reality.
Right. It's the literal fabric of reality itself. It's like a Westworld plot line.
Yeah.
That's seriously, it's like a Truman Show. That
Playing
could be a
out
why.
in front of our very
Right,
eyes.
exactly. That could be a why. Right, and the writers of this freaking show have to tell you what's coming because Number one, they think it's a joke and they're screwing with you and are making fun of you, mocking you, or somebody's making them do it. Somebody's making them tell us, so we can be not necessarily warned, but pick up on it, right? Which I think are two different things. Because if somebody read the wreck of the Titan in 1898, they're not going to be like, oh, this is going to happen in real life. It's not a warning.
Right.
But if somebody read the wreck of the Titan in 1898, and then, this crap happens in 1912, and then in 1918 they're going through their bookshelves, and then they see the wreck of the Titan, and they're like, wait a minute, they pick up on the fact that something is amiss. See the differences in those two things?
I do. There's such a long time between those two events. I think it would be difficult to make that connection unless you're as far removed from those events as we are. I think, when it's something you've lived through, it's different to some degree.
Yeah.
Because the time separation is so significant. That concept probably would seem beyond absurd.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying that happened. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, it could be the same. It could just be a freaking, literal 1984 thing, and the wreck of the Titan never existed.
And was written after.
Right, and it was just, they came up with that maybe in 1991, and then they just made it look like this existed back then and this was written back. Who knows, dude? Who freaking knows?
And I mean, it's hard to know about any of that stuff anymore because everything is being thrown on the internet, and people are starting to have fewer and fewer hard copies of things. And that used to be one of the easiest ways to falsify concepts like that, right? Did this idea really exist before X date, Well, if there's not hard proof of it, unless, somebody thought of it and kept it to themselves, then no, it didn't. Now, the proof can be erased pretty easily.
Yeah, oh yeah. First of all, 100% agree with that. You're completely right. Second of all, even the hard copy stuff, if you go deep enough into the conspiracy world and start getting into the Mandela effect, your mind will be blown. There are people that swear on their life that they had a book of a bunch of bears in their hands as they read as a child that they still own that was called the Berenstain Bears, and then they pull it out 30 years later when they're going through all their crap in their mom's attic after she dies or something, and they pull out that book and it says Berenstain Bears, and you're like, what the F? I know this was the Berenstain.
Yeah.
I've
heard that, but what are you going to do about that,
That's the big question. It literally gets to the point where it's like Neo in the Matrix when he sees that second cat. It makes you question everything, dude. What are we experiencing? What is this body? What generates what we see around us, dude? It gets into metaphysical questions that are so complex that maybe they can't even be answered, dude. It's are you rendering reality as you go along? Are they something outside reality, feeding in information to get your conscious intentions to focus on it, to literally change the past or change reality by you focusing on it? Maybe that was the purpose of the wreck of the Titan. I don't know, dude. It gets so freaking crazy that it can drive you insane.
Right. Okay. Two thoughts. A, when does that line of thinking become useless? You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It gets so crazy it could drive you insane. And so one of the things I hear when I mention that sort of thing to normies, or not even normies, just people who aren't as deeply entrenched in the world of conspiracies as you are, is, the first thing that a lot of them will say is, man, I mean, you could study that for an eternity and you still won't know. And so, is there really a point in looking too much deeper into that? Because if what you say is correct, and I mean, granted, that's a big if, is the fabric of reality, shifting? If that's true, then there's no real way to know for certain.
Yeah. I
So what's, is there a reason to really dwell on that?
I personally don't believe that. There's got to be some kind of objective standard, right?
I would tend to
because
think
otherwise
so as well,
you'll go mad. But that, and I believe that. I think that objective standard is, what created this place, and nothing can screw with that. But I do think, we have a little bit of that creator in us, dude. And like the Bible says that. The image of God, in us.
Okay.
Right? And perhaps if there's something that is an enemy of the creator and thereby an enemy of us, jealous of us, as we discussed with Garrison. Everyone go check out that episode. It's freaking great.
It was.
Like that enemy could use our power against us, use our own power and use us as vessels against ourselves and the creator. And by creating a system through where we focus our intention and energy through certain frequencies to create the traps and systems for humanity that it wants. They have to trick us into it. The devil always has to trick you into screwing yourself over, right?
Okay.
So that's where the subjectiveness and screwing with reality can come into play, right? So the objective baseline is the creator, but the enemy is using us to perhaps literally trick ourselves into changing what the creator made. Now, that's just speculation. I don't know if that's... I don't know.
Yeah, but,
it makes...
but the question, is there any point in dwelling on, was it Berenstein or Berenstain? Is there any point in dwelling on those things that you're suggesting could perhaps have been changed?
Yeah, no. Dwelling on it, no. If you dwell on it, you'll go crazy. Acknowledging that
it's possible
and potentially even happen. I think you should always acknowledge the truth and things that you believe to be true.
You can't know if that's true. You can't know if that's true or not.
Oh, no, I know. Okay. Distinction. I know that it was the freaking Berenstain Bears. I know that.
How?
You know it too. It's not the freaking Berenstain Bears. There's certain ones that you just know, dude.
All right.
Right? Would you agree with me?
I don't want to because I don't like agreeing with you, but yeah, I would.
Right. Now, I'd have no idea why. It could just be a massive 1984 operation. Because to be fair, I myself don't have any I haven't seen like a physical change.
Right.
It's just a memory
Well, that would
change.
be the only objective way to really...
Like, I don't have a physical Mandela effect change, but there are people that claim they do. Maybe they're wrong. So that is an important distinction in the nature of a 1984 situation versus just the fabric of reality itself. So I myself know there's been changes, but I can't link it to anything metaphysical. Does that make sense? But there are people who claim that it is physical, and I'm not going to deny, their experience or what they think. I can't go that far, and that's why I don't believe that, because it hasn't happened to me. Did that answer your question?
Enough. It answered it enough. Yeah.
Yeah, but to link it back to the Titanic, if enough people watch that movie, did it make that book appear? I'm serious.
Maybe.
That's kind of the thought. I don't know. I don't know what the heck's going on. I just know what I do know. I like to say this all the time about everything. What I do know, it's not what they say it is, right?
That does always seem to be the case with anything that involves.
Right. There's too many coincidences. There's too many things that just happen to work out for people who bailed at the last minute, who are in high positions of power. It ain't what they say it is. I know that. Okay. As to what actually happened, I don't freaking know. Did it hit an iceberg? Probably. Could have not have. It could have a bomb. It could have a fire blown up and then
right,
blow a hole in the side of the hole.
Possible.
Lord knows what happened.
Yeah. That is
and it's
wild.
Like you were saying, how it's so connected to popular culture and how it's just even the historical record. How is the historical record so dang detailed, dude? There's pages and pages and pages and pages of Wikipedia articles. If over half these people died, I think it was 700 something survivors, which granted is a lot, but but most of them were common, working class, essentially rednecks.
Right.
Who just wanted to go home to their wife and kids and drink after this was over. How did so much there was a freaking official Titanic cat. There's a Wikipedia article about animals on the Titanic. It had an official cat called Jenny. What
That's
the
retarded.
Why? What? Why is that history? That's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
it's so ingrained in culture. It's so like ridiculously complex that it's like it's important to them for some reason, and like
them,
them, dude,
capital T, them,
capital T,
whoever that is.
yeah. Well, Herman Hotel, baby, them are some baddies who rebelled. Ultimately, at the end of the line, but it's so important to them, and you even like when I told you the name of the Samson, I saw it on your face.
Yeah.
You were like, "That's weird.
That is weird.
That's freaking weird."
It's very strange.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
I can't believe all that.
Well, it's real. Like that's the official story.
Nobody ever talks about that when they're teaching about the Titanic,
Yeah.
ever.
Right. They always chalk it up to it sank because of the hubris of its builders. It was the unsinkable ship.
Exactly. And that's what it's always chalked up
Right.
to. You pick the right word, hubris. And to hear a more detailed account of the way it went on, I would argue that if you told the full story to children, I mean, they would pick up on that like that.
Oh yeah.
If you tell that story to somebody who's already been brainwashed as an adult, though, it's a whole different story.
Oh yeah.
And so you have to wonder, and maybe I'm getting a little far afield for you here, but you have to wonder if that the greater concept of the way they approach talking about the Titanic is built into the way they approach the educational system and teaching, especially people who are young enough not to be uncomfortable asking questions.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with you, man. It's all about accepting authority
Yeah.
as truth. That's
Right.
all it's about. Because to admit that story isn't true, and think about like how much smaller the Titanic is in scale to 9/11. But you're right. Like an adult can't admit that, because if they admit
No.
that, if that's a lie, that they subconsciously know that means that the government, everything mainstream, the government, the culture is lying to them. And if they lie about one thing, they can lie about other things.
Yeah.
And that will our worldview, our lives are so set in that culture and that system that it would destroy many people's sense of self.
Most of our our sense of self, community, our worldview is so often a house of cards. It's dominoes set
Brother,
to fall. And if you kick that first domino out, be it the Titanic or whatever, that's why we hold on so tightly to those concepts. That the Titanic sank because of a iceberg.
Yeah.
9/11 was not an inside job. It was Al Qaeda or the Taliban or whoever
Right.
it was.
And it went down because planes set up a fire and it weakened the steel columns.
Right.
Obviously, it can't be anything else. It can't be anything else, because if it's anything else, my whole life is a lie. And why is your whole life a lie? Okay, because you're working most likely a corporate job, and even if you're not working in a corporate job, you're working in a job that serves the corporate system, the greater economy, right?
There's
So
no
if-
way to not. I mean, we all are.
Exactly. So if you admit that, then that nulls and void that entire thing.
Yeah,
And
it
if-
does.
Seriously.
It
like,
really does. Yeah.
Immediately.
Right.
Like when I came upon that's why I had struggled. I don't want to get driving into personal testimony.
No. I mean,
But
that's
like,
fine. Be honest. Be
you know,
honest. It's okay.
In 20, I just don't want to just rant forever. It's more of a sake of time. But you know, in 2019, like when I finally figured out that the Earth is flat,
Yeah.
I quit caring about my
Everything.
job.
I remember
Specifically,
you then.
I was like, what am I doing? Everything I know and understand is a lie. I am going to a job where everyone is fat, staring at a computer, and incapable of doing anything else than waking up tomorrow and doing the same thing. And it floored me, dude. And it's still, I mean, I haven't really gotten over it. I'm learning to manage it maybe slightly better. But in that, in those initial moments, like, it hit me like a freaking, like the orange blossom special coming in at 100 miles an hour. You know, it just, it train wrecked me. Okay?
Yeah, it did.
And most people, like, I'm trying to, well, that sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but most people can't even freaking deal with, they can't even admit that. Because if they admit that, their whole life, everything they think they know about their life is over. Immediately. Immediately.
Well, it helps. This is where having kind of a existence sometimes helps, because if your life's been at least a little bit up, you've got a whole lot less to hang on to.
That's true. You have
And
less to
so-
lose. You have less to lose by admitting that.
Right, and not to be, gosh, I'm not the Bible thumping quoting type, but like that the beginning of James,
Yeah, James
where-
1 verse 3.
right.
1 verse 3.
right.
Count it all joy when you experience various
That's
trials.
that's
Yeah.
that's exactly right. There's good wisdom there insofar as the pains, the struggles, the right helps remove you from the dependence on that house of cards that most people experience. A lot of people are jealous of, people in the nice penthouses, right? A lot of people are jealous of the guy driving a Maserati around town, but you don't see the shackles, right, that he's wearing every day.
And like too, honest people and like good people, you're like jealous, but you get to the point where you realize it's never gonna happen, right?
Explain.
Like that's kind of what, don't you think that's what kind of that's kind of like the fork in the road? Like lots of people are miserable and jealous, but they're still like, hey, if I can just put in my retirement, keep stocking away in my 401k, or if I can just get this job, get this education, I can at least make it somewhat close to that. Then
I still approach life that way a lot.
and there are some people though who realize it's never freaking gonna happen. That's impossible. And you either go into nihilistic, like proletariat underclass,
Right.
or you break free.
Damn.
Maybe that's too black and white, but
I would argue that it is, but the general concept makes sense. Sometimes it's easier to describe things that are in grayscale and black and white, and then you can iron out the details later. But that makes sense.
well, at least the goal's pretty black and white. You want to break free, and you're either going to break free or you're not. But
Yeah.
maybe not the mentality, if that made sense.
Damn.
And that's just, it's connected directly to the story of the Titanic,
Yeah.
among other things.
Yeah.
But everything that's built in pop culture like that, there's lots of different ones. Like freaking, we went into World War II because the Japanese came and they bombed Pearl Harbor. We had to.
Right. We didn't have a choice.
Right. That's the same thing. You can't, all these like things that are, call it historical fact, that are just like donkey stomped into our heads from the time we can think about anything. All of that is part of the control structure, which ultimate goal is don't question authority. We'll tell you who you are. We'll tell you what you're supposed to believe. We'll tell you what you're supposed to do. We'll tell you how you're supposed to die. You
Yeah.
know? And if you accept that, then, well, I guess you don't have to think for yourself, which maybe releases some fear.
That's why people do
Yeah.
things like that. Not to be like the crunchy guy, but that's why people trust doctors too. I had to talk with somebody the other day. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to hand over the keys to whatever the problem is. It's, and you can take comfort in that authority. It's so much easier.
Yeah. Problem is, Jesus said it himself, you're from your father, the devil, and the father of lies. The authority is just a masquerading. It's not the actual authority. Right? So if you can't discern who actually has authority over you, you're done. You're done. Because you got to define authority as a concept that we all understand. But who rightfully has authority over you?
Those waters have been so muddied now. Especially now. There used to be even a clear cultural, there used to be clear culturally defined lines of authority, right? Like dad went to work, respected his boss, who respected his boss, who respected his. And they simply handed over, the respect to the authority as it was due simply because of the position. But, I mean, you look at culture and the way people talk to their parents, to their teachers, to other people, and those lines are increasingly more and more blurry, not to mention the kind of authority you're talking about, which is probably, getting more and more difficult,
Yeah, I wanted to butt in something you said there. Like, I feel like I know what you meant. I agree with the concept, but like I feel like you were like respect and authority are different things, right? Like I feel like what you were talking about was mostly respect, right? You're not, which is part of like you're not gonna, because human beings have value just in the nature of their life. You're not going to just like be a dick, like go against their own will, or go against somebody else's will if it's not going to infringe on yours just because you can, because you could.
Right.
That doesn't mean they have authority over you. Like, you're my friend, and not only because of my friend, you're just a human being. Like, I'm not going to get out and, just go freaking like eat all your food, or I don't know, something. It sounds ridiculous, but I'm not going to do that because of respect. But like, do you have the authority to? It's not. I'm trying to differentiate between authority and respect, right?
Respect is, like you said, you not doing something inappropriate in my presence simply because I'm another human being.
Right.
My having authority would be like
if it's yours.
If I ask you to do something stupid, right, you have no cause to do it because I have no authority over you. You have your own agency as a human being, and I don't hold a position of greater knowledge or understanding than you in this life. I don't.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, who has the authority to tell you to do something ultimately?
Right.
When all other external factors, notwithstanding, right, out of the picture.
Right.
Who has the authority to tell you what to do?
Yeah.
When you're not related to other people, right? For the course of your own life, for the course of what you want to do with your life. And it only has one answer, dude.
Yeah.
Your maker.
Right.
That's the ecclesiastical law.
Yeah, because I wanted to maybe offer another definition for authority. It's what can make you violate, like what can take away your agency. That's ultimate authority.
I don't think anything can take away your agency.
Your maker can take away your agency.
I don't
don't think so.
Maybe.
I'm just saying is like what has the power to do that. Is my point.
Not to get into the.
I mean,
we're slowly wading into like metaphysics here, but I don't think anything, at least as far as human beings are concerned, has the power to remove human agency, human free will. I don't think there's an entity that does have that ability. I don't.
I would agree with that unless you give it up.
Right, and well, that would be a matter of handing that over,
Right.
and whatever faith you ascribe to, whatever religion you ascribe to, with I'm sure a few notable exceptions, man always retains his free will. Biblically, pick a religion. Man always retains his free will unless he hands that over to something, and typically that something is one of two things: God or Satan, right? To use the Christian analogy, and and that gets into the whole discussion of but you understand my point. I don't think anything has the power to remove human free will except for you as the human being. You have that power to hand your will over to something else, but that's the only way something else is going to retain ownership of you. Period.
Yeah. And to relate that to the Titanic, I'm sure once that captain got approached by ex-executive of the White Star Lines and he was pitched this deal, he could have been like, nah, man, I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
That would have been his authority, right? They might have killed him for it, right? They might have fired him. He might have been destitute, poor. They might have come after his family. But he had the choice to say no.
Could have gone out on his own terms.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead, he said yes. And the moment he said yes, his fate was sealed. His authority was taken away. His autonomy was taken away. He was dying no matter what he did, even though he thought he was going to be saved.
Right. Yeah, and I would argue, honestly, that to believe, which I have often in my life, to believe that something can remove that authority, that agency from you, will typically lead to nihilistic behavior over time. I've caught myself in that loop 1,000 times, having that external locus of control, thinking that, I have little to no effect on the direction my life is headed. It leads to just total, complete nihilism and self-absorption and self-pity. And, yeah, sorry.
No, you're right, dude. Man, and isn't that still such a struggle though? Like even though we know
Every
that-
day for me. I mean, yeah, it's a absolute struggle.
I don't know what the answer is to that. More maturity, some kind of revelation.
I don't have the answer.
I don't know.
I have no clue.
I don't know. I just, like I said, all I know is it ain't what they say it is. When you lump Titanic, throw them all up there, and we'll cover a lot more, Throw it all up there, and ain't what they say it is.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to land this plane, as it were.
Oh, or dock the... Why wouldn't you say dock the boat? It's the freaking Titanic, dude. The Titanic isn't an airplane.
But he didn't have
Yeah.
a boat.
I didn't have a boat. I had a little copper plane. A boat would have been so much. We should have gotten a boat for the episode to put on the table.
I could have built one.
Out of Legos?
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll sum it up with this sentence.
All right.
The Titanic was no longer in commission in 1935.
So what sank in 1912?
The Olympic.
There you go.
The Britannic was some kind of weird hospital.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.